Look, I'm going to be honest with you. The day I met Riley Park was the day I stopped believing the universe had any sense of humor, or maybe it was the day I realized the universe had too much of a sense of humor, and most of it was at my expense. My name is Crix, and I'm a Zenthari, which means I've got 4 arms, 6 eyes, and exactly 0 capacity for dealing with stress. I was sitting in Professor Quilnax's Xenobiology class, minding my own business, taking notes with 3 hands while scratching an itch with the 4th, when everything went sideways. Professor Quilnax, bless his ancient moth-person's soul, was approximately 900 years old, and had the energy of a solar flare. He fluttered around the lecture hall, his translucent wings catching the light, antenna twitching with excitement as he droned on about forbidden planets. Class, settle down, he chittered, his mandibles clicking together. Today we're discussing the most dangerous, horrifying, absolutely nightmare-inducing planets in the known galaxy. A hologram flickered to life above his desk. Several planets rotated slowly, each one marked with danger classifications. Most were level 3 or level 4. Unpleasant, sure, but survivable with proper equipment. Then he pulled up Earth. The hologram blazed with a bright red warning label, Level 9 Danger Classification, Restricted Access, Approach with Extreme Caution. Oh wow, whispered Tellus, a gelatinous scrin sitting next to me, her entire body quivering with fear. Level 9. I didn't even know the scale went that high. It doesn't, I muttered, all 6 of my eyes widening. Level 7 is supposed to be the maximum. Level 8 is theoretical. Level 9 is basically a death sentence with extra paperwork. Professor Quilnax nodded enthusiastically. Indeed. Earth is special. Students. Let me list its charming features, shall we? He pulled up a data stream, and I watched in mounting horror as the statistics rolled across the hologram. Gravity 0.98 times galactic standard. That's nearly double what most civilized species evolved in. The atmospheric pressure alone would crush a whisper fey in seconds, and the oxygen content. He paused dramatically. 21%. That's not an atmosphere. That's a slow-motion fire waiting to happen. One spark, and whoosh, he made an explosion gesture with his tiny moth hands. A nervous laugh rippled through the classroom. Surely he was exaggerating. He was not exaggerating. But wait, there's more. Professor Quilnax was having the time of his life. Earth's surface is 70% covered in a liquid that will drown you. The weather systems include rotating vortexes of destruction called hurricanes, tornadoes and cyclones. The temperature swings from boiling to freezing depending on the season. And don't even get me started on the predators. Another hologram appeared. This one showed something called a bear. It was massive, covered in fur with claws, as long as my forearm and teeth designed specifically for ripping flesh from bone. This creature, Quilnax continued, can run at speeds up to 30 miles per hour, swim, climb trees, and has a bite force of over 800 pounds per square inch. And this isn't even the apex predator. There are things called crocodiles, sharks and big cats that make this look cuddly. I felt all 4 of my stomachs churning. Why would anyone ever go there? I asked, raising one hand tentatively. Excellent question, Crix. They wouldn't. Earth is forbidden. No sane species would colonize such a nightmare. Professor Quilnax clicked his mandibles triumphantly, which makes it all the more fascinating that a species did evolve there, survived and somehow achieved spaceflight. They call themselves humans, and they are, by all accounts, absolutely. The classroom door slid open with a soft hiss. Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was a small, fragile-looking biped. She had pale skin, long dark hair tied back in something called a ponytail, and was wearing the standard academy uniform that looked 3 sizes too big on her delicate frame. She had only 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. She looked like a strong breeze could snap her in half. Sorry I'm late, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. Transfer paperwork took forever. I'm Riley Park. Professor Quilnax's antenna perked up. Ah, yes. Our new transfer student. Class. Please welcome Riley. She's joining us from a... He glanced at his datapad, and his wings suddenly went very, very still. From Earth. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Tella made a sound like a balloon deflating and oozed right off her chair onto the floor in a puddle of terrified goo. Riley blinked at us with those two tiny eyes. "What?" she asked, looking genuinely confused. "Did I miss something?" I stared at her. At this tiny, soft, breakable-looking creature, who had just casually mentioned she was from the Level 9 Deathworld we'd spent the last 20 minutes learning about. My brain tried to process this information, and failed spectacularly. "You," I stammered, pointing with two hands while gripping my desk with the other two. "You're from there? From the planet with the crushing gravity and the murder bears and the exploding atmosphere?" Riley glanced at the hologram, still rotating above Professor Quillnax's desk. "Oh yeah," she said, shrugging like it was no big deal. "Born and raised, nice place, little humid in the summer, but you get used to it." The classroom erupted into chaos. So naturally Professor Quillnax assigned me as Riley's survival buddy. Me, Crix, the guy who once fainted during a documentary about moderately aggressive plant life. "But Professor," I whimpered, all four hands raised in protest, "shouldn't someone more I don't know qualified handle this? Someone with combat training, or a death wish?" "Nonsense." Quillnax chittered cheerfully. "You're perfect, Crix. You're organized, responsible, and you sit in the front row. Now go show Riley around campus before she accidentally terrifies anyone else." Riley smiled at me. It was probably meant to be friendly, but I just watched a hologram about Earth predators, and all I could think was that's a lot of teeth. "Hey, thanks for doing this," she said, extending one of her hands toward me. "I know this is probably weird." I stared at her hand. Was this some kind of threat display? A dominance gesture? I carefully extended one of my own hands and touched hers. Her grip was firm. Too firm. I felt the bones in my hand creak slightly. "So, I said, gently extracting my hand before she could accidentally pulverize it. "Tell me about Earth. What's it like growing up on a Level 9 Deathworld?" We started walking down the corridor, and Riley just laughed. "Actually lived. Deathworld. I mean, I guess. We don't really think of it that way. It's just home, you know. Professor Quillnax said you have predators that can kill you in seconds." "Oh sure," Riley said casually, like we were discussing the weather, "but most of them leave you alone if you leave them alone. We actually keep some of the smaller predators as pets." I stopped walking, all six eyes fixed on her. "You keep predators as pets?" "Yeah. Dogs are great. They're descended from wolves, which are these pack hunters with incredible bite strength, but we domesticated them like 10,000 years ago. Now they sleep in our beds and play fetch." She pulled out her datapad and showed me a picture of something fluffy with big eyes and way too many teeth. "This is my dog Biscuit. He's a golden retriever." That thing could rip my throat out. "What?" "No. Well, I mean technically yes, but he wouldn't. He's a sweetheart. He's scared of the vacuum cleaner." I didn't know what a vacuum cleaner was, but I was starting to understand that humans had a very different definition of the word safe than the rest of the galaxy. It got worse at lunch. The Academy cafeteria was designed to accommodate approximately 400 different species with 400 different dietary requirements. There were nutrient paste dispensers, algae bars, synthesized proteins, and carefully labeled sections for methane breathers versus oxygen breathers. Riley walked up to the exotic food section, the one with the big warning labels, and grabbed something called a pepper. "Oh, finally," she said, biting into it. "I've been craving something spicy." The Flixian student next to her took one whiff of the capsaicin in the air, and immediately started wheezing, his gills flaring in distress. "Poison," he gasped. "Chemical weapon." Riley looked confused. "What?" "It's just a jalapeno. It's not even that hot. Back home we have peppers that are like 50 times stronger." "Why would you eat something that causes pain?" I asked, genuinely baffled. "Because it tastes good." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Spicy food is just, flavor. Heat, it's fun." "Fun," I repeated weakly. "Pain is fun." Then she ordered coffee. The cafeteria worker, a nervous Plix with tentacles that kept coiling anxiously, looked at the order and then back at Riley. You know this is on the restricted list, right? This beverage contains enough stimulants to stop a Thorian's heart." "Yeah, I need the caffeine," Riley said, taking the cup. "Didn't sleep well last night. New planet. New bed, you know how it is. She took a long sip and sighed contentedly. I watched in horror as she consumed what was essentially poison and acted like it was a treat. How are you not dead? I whispered. From coffee, dude. Some humans drink like 5 cups a day. My mom's a surgeon. She basically runs on this stuff. The afternoon got even more surreal during gym class. Our instructor, a hulking crather with muscles on his muscles, had set up a basic endurance course. Just a light jog, students. 3 laps around the track. Nothing strenuous. Riley stepped onto the treadmill, adjusted the settings and started running. The machine immediately started making alarming noises. Is it supposed to sound like that? She called out, her breathing completely even, not even slightly winded. No, the instructor shouted, rushing over. That's the maximum speed setting. That's for emergency evacuation training. Oh, sorry. I thought this was the warm-up. Riley hopped off, and the treadmill promptly sparked and died, smoke rising from its motor. She looked genuinely apologetic. I'll pay for that. I keep forgetting the gravity here is lighter. Everything feels like I'm moving in slow motion. Later, she accidentally crushed a datapad while trying to hand it to me, just squeezed it in her grip, and the reinforced casing cracked like an eggshell. Oh no, I'm so sorry. She looked mortified. I swear I barely touched it. That's when it hit me. This small, friendly, apologetic girl who liked dogs and spicy food and coffee was a walking nightmare. She wasn't trying to be scary. She wasn't trying to be dangerous. This was just normal for her. Humans didn't just survive on a Deathworld. They thrived there. They evolved there. Every single system in their body was designed for a planet that was actively trying to kill them, and they thought it was nice. Riley Park wasn't a monster. She was something way worse. She was a Deathworld predator who didn't even know it. 3 weeks into the semester, Professor Quilnax announced a field trip to Seraph 7, a small moon with a nature preserve specifically designed for student safety. Low gravity, docile wildlife, breathable atmosphere. The brochure literally called it a relaxing educational experience for species of all threat levels. I should have known better. This is going to be great, Riley said as we boarded the transport shuttle. I haven't seen real nature in weeks. Just these sterile hallways and recycled air. This is safe nature, I reminded her, strapping myself in with all 4 arms, controlled, regulated. Nothing that can kill us. Yeah, I read the brochure, she said, sounding slightly disappointed. The most dangerous thing on Seraph 7 is something called a razorback stalker, and they're kept in containment fields. Apparently they're about the size of a large dog. A large earth dog or a normal dog? Normal, I think. Why? Just checking, I muttered. The preserve was beautiful, I'll admit. Rolling purple grass fields, crystalline streams, trees with bioluminescent leaves that chimed softly in the breeze. The gravity was 0.47 Galactic standard, which meant everyone was practically bouncing with each step. Riley kept giggling every time she jumped and floated for 3 full seconds before landing. This is amazing, she laughed. It's like being on a trampoline. Professor Quilnax gathered us near the main observation deck. Now students stay within the designated paths. The automated systems monitor everything, so we're perfectly safe. The razorback stalkers are in Sector 7 behind triple redundant containment fields, so there's absolutely no chance of, well, anything exciting happening. That's when the alarm started. The mechanical voice echoed across the preserve. Warning. System malfunction. Containment breach in Sector 7. Warning. Containment breach. Professor Quilnax's antenna drooped. Oh dear. Oh dear? Tella shrieked, her gelatinous body rippling with panic. What does oh dear mean? Then we saw them. 3 razorback stalkers burst through the tree line. And okay, sure, they were about the size of a large dog. A large earth dog, which meant they were the size of a small shuttle. 6 legs, razor-sharp quills running down their spines, claws that gouged trenches in the ground with each step, and mouths full of serrated teeth designed to shred armor plating. The class erupted into chaos. Students scattered in every direction, screaming in 47 different languages. Professor Quilnax tried to fly away, but his ancient wings gave out, and he face-planted into a bush. I froze completely, all 6 eyes locked on the approaching predators, my brain helpfully supplying the single word dead, 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 dead. Then I heard Riley's voice, sharp and commanding. Everyone stop running. Something in her tone made me obey instantly. I skidded to a halt. Around me, other students did the same, responding to some primal authority in her voice that bypassed rational thought. Riley's entire demeanor had changed. The friendly, slightly clumsy girl who'd spent the last 3 weeks apologizing for breaking things was gone. In her place stood something focused, calculating, and utterly terrifying. Her eyes tracked the razorback stalkers, analyzing their movement patterns in seconds. "They're pack hunters," she said calmly. "Chasing triggers their prey drive. Tetrix, I need you to gather everyone behind me." "Meow." "Behind you?" I squeaked. "You're tiny. Do it." I did it. Something in her voice made arguing impossible. I used all 4 arms to herd students into a tight group behind Riley's small frame. She scanned the environment, moving with purpose. She grabbed a fallen branch, thick as my torso, and tested its weight. Then she ripped a piece of metal railing from a nearby fence with her bare hands. The sound of tearing metal made everyone flinch. "Holy stars, she's strong," Tella whispered. Riley positioned herself between us and the stalkers, her body language completely transformed. She stood taller, shoulders back, that makeshift branch held like a weapon. "When I tell you to make noise, you scream, as loud as you can. Understand?" We nodded frantically. The stalkers approached, their quills rattling, heads low, eyes fixed on us. The Alpha, a massive male with scarred flanks, stepped forward, jaws opening to reveal rows of teeth. Riley didn't flinch. Instead, she suddenly charged forward 3 steps, swinging the branch down hard enough to crack the ground, and released a sound I didn't know human throats could make. It was a roar, a battle cry, a challenge that echoed across the preserve. "Now," she shouted. "Make noise." We screamed, 40 terrified students making every sound our species could produce. Riley didn't stop. She banged the metal railing against a rock, creating a deafening clang, then rushed forward again, making herself bigger, louder, more. She grabbed handfuls of mud and hurled them at the Alpha, hitting it square in the face. The stalker recoiled, confused. Riley pressed the advantage. She stepped forward, never breaking eye contact with the Alpha, her body language radiating aggression. "That's right," she shouted. "You want a piece of this? I'm from Earth. I've got endurance stamina you can't even imagine. I can chase you for hours. I can sweat to cool down while you overheat. My species didn't claw its way to the top of the food chain to be scared of an oversized porcupine." I had no idea what a porcupine was, but her confidence was absolutely unshakable. The Alpha stalker made a low rumbling sound. Its quills flattened slightly. It took a step back. Riley took a step forward. The standoff lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. This tiny human girl, barely 100 pounds, facing down a half-ton apex predator through nothing but sheer force of will and absolute refusal to be prey. The Alpha broke eye contact first. It huffed, turned its massive head, and retreated into the tree line. The other 2 stalkers followed immediately, their quills rattling as they disappeared. Riley stood there for another moment, breathing hard, branch still raised. Then she slowly lowered it and turned back to us, her face covered in mud and purple grass stains. "Everyone okay?" she asked, her voice returning to normal. We stared at her in stunned silence. Security shuttles roared overhead, finally arriving. Guards in full combat armor rappelled down, weapons drawn, only to find the threat had already retreated, and 40 students clustered around one very muddy human girl. "What happened here?" the lead guard demanded, his scanner sweeping the area. "Containment breach," Riley said simply, dropping the branch. "The stalkers came through but they left. No injuries." The guard looked at her, then at the claw marks in the ground, then at the trampled vegetation leading back into the forest, then back at her. "I mean, we didn't really have another option," Riley said, shrugging. "Running would have just made them chase us. Better to stand ground and make them think twice." Professor Quilnax finally extracted himself from the bush, his wings askew. "Riley, that was, I don't even have words." "Is it okay if we still get lunch?" Riley asked, completely unfazed. "I'm starving. Adrenaline always makes me hungry." I looked at her. This small human girl asking about lunch after facing down 3 apex predators, and finally understood something fundamental about Earth. It didn't produce monsters. It produced something far more terrifying. Survivors who thought this was just another Tuesday. The Academy held an emergency meeting the next morning. I knew this because every single administrator, professor, and security officer crammed into the main auditorium, and the only topic on the agenda was what do we do about the human. Riley, meanwhile, was in the cafeteria eating pancakes. Old shakes ate faster than a quantum transmission. By lunch, everyone knew. The tiny human girl from the Deathworld had stared down 3 razorback stalkers and won. She became an instant legend. The kind of story that gets bigger with each retelling. I heard she killed all 3 with her bare hands, someone whispered in the hallway. I heard she ate one, another voice added. I heard she's actually a trained assassin and the Academy is just her cover. None of it was true, but nobody cared. Riley Park had become the most famous and terrifying student on campus, and she seemed completely oblivious to it. My perspective, though, it shifted. The terror was still there, don't get me wrong, but it was now mixed with something else. Oh, respect. The realization that I'd witnessed something incredible, something that redefined my entire understanding of survival. 3 days after the incident, Galactic News showed up. They set up in one of the lecture halls, lights and cameras everywhere, and Riley sat in a chair looking mildly uncomfortable with all the attention. The interviewer was a Valkyrie named Zis, all scales and professional composure. Miss Park, Zis began, her forked tongue flickering. The entire galaxy is talking about what happened on Seraph 7. You faced down 3 apex predators with nothing but a stick and, according to witnesses, sheer audacity. How did you know what to do? Riley laughed. That same easy laugh I'd heard 100 times. Honestly, basic Earth survival training, like stuff every kid learns growing up. Zis's scales rippled with confusion. Every child on Earth learns to confront predators. Well, not exactly confront, but yeah, we learn what to do if we encounter dangerous animals. Bears, mountain lions, wolves. You make yourself big, make noise, don't run. Running triggers the chase instinct. She paused. Also, my dad took me camping a lot. You pick up things. Camping, Zis repeated slowly. You voluntarily went into the wilderness, for recreation? Sure, it's fun. You hike, set up a tent, cook over a fire, sleep under the stars. Sometimes you see wildlife. Once we had a bear wander through our campsite, but we just made noise and it left. The interview room went very quiet. You, Z said carefully, encountered a creature similar to the one on your datapad, the one with 800 pounds of bite force, and your response was to make noise and secure our food properly. Bears have an amazing sense of smell. Zis looked at her notes, clearly trying to process this. Tell me about your childhood. What was a typical day like on Earth? Riley thought for a moment. Well, I grew up near the ocean, so I learned to swim when I was like 5 years old. Swim, I interjected from my spot behind the cameras, unable to help myself. In the water, the thing that drowns you. I mean, yeah, you have to learn technique, Riley said. Treading water, floating, how to handle currents and waves. My mom was super strict about water safety, but once you know how, it's great. Surfing, snorkeling, just playing in the waves. Zis's scales had gone pale. Your parent taught you to enter drowning liquid as a child. For safety, so I wouldn't drown. What else did you do for fun? Zis asked, her voice slightly strangled. Oh, lots of stuff. I rode bikes everywhere, played soccer and volleyball, went rock climbing with my friends. Normal kid stuff. Bikes, Zis said. Explain bikes. Two-wheeled vehicle, you balance on it and pedal. You can go pretty fast, like 15-20 miles per hour. You balanced on 2 wheels at high speed. Yeah, once you get the hang of it, it's easy. Though I did crash a few times learning. Broke my arm when I was 8. Every single person in the room recoiled. You broke a structural limb? Sis's voice went up an octave. Kids break bones sometimes. It healed fine, see. She held up her arm and flexed it. Good as new. Humans have pretty good healing factors. I watched the interviewer struggle with this information. Riley kept talking, completely unaware of the horror she was inspiring. Oh, and food. Earth food is amazing. We eat things with capsaicin for flavor, fermented foods, aged cheeses. My favorite is Thai food, super spicy, and chocolate. You guys don't have chocolate here. It's tragic. The pepper you ate in the cafeteria, said weakly. That was for flavor. Well, yeah, food should taste like something. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, each revelation more unsettling than the last. By the end, Zish looked like she needed a stiff drink and therapy. But something clicked for me during that interview. Watching Riley describe her completely normal Earth childhood, I finally understood. Earth didn't make monsters. Earth made survivors. Every single human was trained from birth to handle a world that was constantly trying to kill them, swimming so they wouldn't drown, learning to handle fire so they wouldn't burn, identifying dangerous animals, building shelters, finding food and water, adapting to extreme temperatures. They weren't taught to fear their world. They were taught to master it. After the interview, I found Riley outside, sitting on a bench and watching the sunset. 3 moons hung in the purple sky, and she looked peaceful. Hey, I said, settling next to her with all 4 arms folded. Can I ask you something? Sure, Crix. Why are humans so I don't know friendly? You're apex predators. You come from a world that would kill most of us in minutes. You're strong enough to crush bones and fast enough to outrun our security systems. So why are you so nice? Riley was quiet for a moment, watching the moons. Because we know what it's like to be prey too, she said finally. Yeah, humans are predators. We've got forward-facing eyes. We eat meat. We're built for endurance hunting. But we're also small compared to a lot of Earth's predators. We've been hunted. We've been scared. We've had to band together to survive. She turned to look at me with those 2 eyes. Earth taught me that being alive means being adaptable, and part of adapting is cooperation, kindness, community. Because none of us survive alone, you know. Not really. I thought about that. About 40 students huddled together while Riley faced down the stalkers. About how she'd protected us. You're not as scary as you were 3 weeks ago, I said. Riley grinned. Give it time. I haven't even told you about Australian wildlife yet. Please don't. Everything there is venomous. Please don't. But she was laughing, and despite everything, so was I. 2 weeks after the Seraph 7 incident, I was leaving the library when I saw Professor Quilnax and Riley talking in one of the observation lounges. The professor's antennae were twitching in that way, that meant he was about to say something important, and curiosity got the better of me. I definitely wasn't eavesdropping. I was just standing nearby, with all 6 eyes pointed in their direction. Perfectly innocent. Riley, Professor Quilnax said, his voice unusually serious, I need to tell you something about Earth's classification, something most people don't understand. Riley tilted her head. Okay? Earth isn't classified as level 9 dangerous because it's hostile, he said carefully. It's classified dangerous because of what it produces. There was a long pause. Humans, Riley said slowly. Humans, Quilnax confirmed. Think about it, child. What other species has domesticated apex predators? You live with wolves. You ride on the backs of prey animals large enough to kill you with a single kick. You keep obligate carnivores in your homes as companions. Cats. Ambush predators that only tolerate you because you're useful. Riley started to smile. Every species that evolved alongside humans had 2 choices, Quilnax continued, his wings fluttering with emphasis. Cooperate or die. Your people didn't just survive Earth, you conquered it. You built cities in deserts, jungles, frozen tundras, on fault lines and flood plains and the edges of volcanoes. You turned a world actively trying to kill you into a garden. So we're not banned because Earth is deadly, Riley said, her smile growing wider. You're monitored, Quilnax said gently, because you're the deadliest thing Earth ever made, and the galaxy needs to be very certain that humanity's cooperation instinct remains stronger than your predator instinct. Riley laughed, actually laughed at that. Professor, if we wanted to be scary, we wouldn't be here learning Xenobiology. We'd be, I don't know, conquering stuff. Precisely. Quilnax's antenna perked up. That's what makes humans so remarkable. You choose kindness. You choose cooperation. Despite every evolutionary advantage that would let you dominate, you instead seek understanding. He patted her shoulder with one tiny moth hand. That's why you're welcome here, Riley Park. Because humans are terrifying. Yes. But you're also hopeful. And hope in this galaxy is far more powerful than fear. I watched Riley walk away, probably heading to combat training class, and something shifted in my understanding once again. The next day, I watched her spar with a Thorian student twice her size. She moved with perfect control, pulling her punches, adjusting her strength, making sure every strike was firm enough to be educational but gentle enough not to injure. She was holding back. Constantly. Every single interaction she had with us, she was consciously limiting herself. That's when I truly understood humans. I learned 3 things about humans that semester. 1. They can survive anywhere. Anywhere. You drop a human on an ice planet or a desert world, or in the vacuum of space with nothing but a broken ship and a roll of duct tape, and they'll figure it out. They'll adapt. They'll thrive. It's what they do. 2. They choose kindness despite their nature. Riley could have dominated our entire class, could have intimidated us, bullied us, used her natural advantages to make herself queen of the academy. Instead, she helped Tella with her homework. She laughed at my jokes. She brought coffee for Professor Quilnax because she noticed he liked the smell even though he couldn't drink it. And 3. I'm very glad they're friendly. Because the alternative keeps me up at night. The semester continued. Riley became less of a terrifying legend and more of just Riley, my friend, the girl who couldn't stop breaking datapads and apologized every single time, who got excited about Earth holidays and tried to explain something called Halloween to increasingly confused aliens, who aced every physical test without trying and struggled with quantum mathematics just like the rest of us. On the last day of class, Riley caught me by the door. "Hey Crix," she said, smiling that smile that I no longer found quite so terrifying. "Thanks for being my survival buddy. I know I was a lot to deal with at first." "You saved my life," I said simply. "All 4 of my hearts are grateful." She hugged me. Very gently. Humans like hugs, I'd learned. Physical contact for emotional connection. Another quirk of a species that survived through cooperation. "See you next semester," she asked. "Absolutely," I said, waving with 2 hands as she headed down the corridor. I signed up for advanced Xenobiology. "Try not to have any more field trips to dangerous places," I called after her. "No promises," she called back, laughing. I watched her go, then headed to my own dorm. I had homework to finish. Boring, normal, safe homework that involved reading and writing and absolutely 0 chance of being chased by predators. But I never complained about homework again. Because at least it couldn't eat me.